Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and this is where I talk about all of the bookish things that I love. For today's video, I'm going to be talking about chunky books, specifically chunky romance books that I adore. So do not let their size scare you away. These books are all great and I would totally recommend all of them. So these are all going to be books that are over 450 pages. So we've got some that are 460 pages and we've got some that are 600 pages. So I am just going to give you some recommendations for chunky books. So the first one that I want to mention is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. This is a fantasy style romance and it is 477 pages. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it is probably one of my favorite Beauty and the Beast retellings that I've read. So this one is about a girl named Harper who lives in present-day Washington, D.C., and she is struggling with her life. Her and her brother are kind of like down on their luck. Her mother is severely ill. Her father left and I think maybe even died. And it's just basically her and her brother. So one day Harper watches a man try and kidnap a girl and she intervenes. She can't just watch as this man tries to kidnap this girl, and so she intervenes and she ends up getting kidnapped instead. But she ends up getting kidnapped and taken to this fantasy world, this alternate universe world situation. And she ends up in a land called Emberfall, where the prince is with his guard, who's happened to be the man that kidnapped her. His name is Gray, and then the prince's name is Ren. So what happens is each season, I think, the land is attacked by this really crazy beast that kills and ruins everything. And Harper is there and kidnapped, stuck there for the season. She is not taken back to Washington, D.C. So basically each season, Gray goes to the real world and takes a girl to try and break the curse. And this season, Harper happens to be the one that was taken. I really enjoyed this. I would totally recommend it. There is some representation in here also. Harper has cerebral palsy, I'm pretty sure is what she has. And she does not let it stop her, hold her back at all. She is one of the badass characters and she's just so awesome. The third book in this series just came out at the end of January. The second one is called A Heart So Fierce and Broken, and the third one that just came out is called A Vow So Bold and Deadly. I have yet to read the third one, but the second one is also really good, and I would totally recommend the whole series. But and the whole series is pretty chunky, but such a good Beauty and the Beast retelling. So if you really like retellings and fantasy romance, I would totally recommend this one. The next one is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. This book is probably the biggest on this list. Look how chunky it is. It is so many pages. It is 665 pages, but they are all worth it. So Mariana Zapata has a lot of really large, chunky books, but Wall of Winnipeg happens to be one of my favorites, so that's why I chose it. I would also recommend Culty, but The Wall of Winnipeg is probably the biggest. This is a sports romance. It also deals with contemporary marriage of convenience. So basically, Aidan Graves is a football player, and he is Canadian, but he lives in America and plays for the NHL. So his visa is about to expire, and he asks his assistant, who has just recently quit her job, he asks his assistant to marry him in order for him to stay in the country. So basically, his assistant's name is Vanessa. I was right. His assistant's name is Vanessa, and she has worked for Aiden for a long time, and she has always put off leaving to start her own business that she's wanted to do for a long time, but she keeps putting it off. And basically, she finally decides that she's had enough, and she quits. And Aiden shows up at her apartment and says, I know you quit, and I don't want you to quit. I want you to marry me, and I'll pay you in order to marry me because I want to stay in the country. And basically, he's like, you're the only person that I can stand. Like, I can tolerate you, so that's why I want to marry you. But he offers to buy her a house and pay off all of her student loans if she agrees to marry him and be married to him for, I think, a year or 5 years, something like that. And he makes her an offer she can't refuse, and so she and him end up deciding to marry each other, and they have to pretend to be married or pretend to be in love for all their friends and family and everything. But one thing I absolutely love about this book is how, like, surly Aiden is. He is definitely not a sunshine guy. He's very, very grumpy. He's very, likes things in a particular way. He is not the most friendly or smiley of people, but you, really grow to understand his ways of showing that he appreciates you and showing that he enjoys your company and stuff. It's almost like he doesn't understand how to be in social situations, but it's really, really good, and I totally recommend it. And I know that it's long, but it's so worth it. That last couple of chapters are amazing, and the whole book is amazing, but those last couple of chapters, you're working up to it so much. And Mariana Zapata is a queen of slow burn, and this is definitely a slow burn, but the angst and the emotions that you feel, that you're oh my gosh, please get together, you want them to be together so badly. I felt it so much in this book. It's so worth it. So the next one is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is another fantasy romance, and it is 613 pages, and they're all worth it. So this is a story about a girl named Poppy, who is the maiden, and she has been told her by the ruling people in the government of her land that she is the chosen one. She's the maiden, and that the ascensions of all of the other lords and ladies depend on her. They need her, and that she is really, really important to the future of their people, basically. But as a condition of that, she is not allowed to have friends. She's not even allowed to be talked to or looked upon. She has to wear a veil. She's not allowed to be touched by anyone other than the higher ups in the government, basically. So she has, she's not allowed to be seen or talked to or make friends or anything. And she's basically held in the castle and not allowed to go anywhere. So one night she decides that she's gonna sneak out and that she wants to go and basically just try and feel like a normal person for a minute. So she goes to this gambling place, and she ends up meeting this man, and she kisses him, and he doesn't see her face. She has a mask on, but they end up kissing, and then she leaves, and the next day she wakes up and she is introduced to her new bodyguard, and it happens to be the man that she kissed the night before. So this it builds from there, but this had so many twists and turns. There were so many things that I was like not expecting. Then there were some that I was like, oh my gosh, I totally like was able to guess, and I was so excited that I got it right. But there were some where I was like, oh my god, I had no idea that was going to happen, and I read this entire book in one sitting. So it is so fun, and it was one of my favorite books of 2020, so I would totally recommend it. The next one that I want to talk about is The Forbidden Man by Karina Halley. This book is, I don't know how many pages because I do not have a physical copy of it. I listened to this on audio, but it is over 450 pages, and it is another sports romance. This one is about a woman who is in her 40s, I believe, and she is a physical therapist, sports therapist for European soccer teams, professional soccer teams, and she used to work at Manchester United, and she ended up having to leave because her ex-husband was the coach, and she and him got divorced, and so she ended up having to leave her position, and she gets a job with Real Madrid, the Madrid professional football team. And she has a forbidden relationship with one of the players on Real Madrid's team. And it is so good, and Alejo, who is the hero, is so swoony and romantic and sweet, and I loved him so much. He was such a like sweetheart. He was so good. And it's also a bit of an age gap. He's, I think, in his early 20s and she is in her mid 40s, or early 40s, so there's quite a bit of an age gap, but it's so good, and it's so swoony and romantic and also steamy. Like, there's so much in it. It's so good, and I would totally recommend it if you haven't tried it. It's really, really fun. Then the next one that I want to mention is another sports romance. I like sports romances, and that is Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. This one is about a NBA basketball player, and a girl named Bo, I think is her name. I think her name's Bo. Iris. Her name's Iris, and her nickname is Bo. So good at this. I don't remember the guy's name though. But so basically, the main hero and Iris meet each other in a bar, and they really like connect in the bar. They get to know each other a lot just in this one like interaction, and the hero really strongly feels that connection, and he's like, okay, this is the woman for me. I feel that connection instantly, like this is the woman that I'm going to marry. So when he tries to kiss her at the end of the night, when they're both leaving this bar, she backs away, tells him that she has a boyfriend. The next day, he is playing in his senior year championship for basketball, and he sees Iris again, and her boyfriend ends up being one of the players on the other team, one of his really big rivals in basketball, and they both him and the boyfriend Cole end up being drafted, and it is a very twist and turns type story where there is so much going on, and it's very hard to read at times. There's a lot of trigger warnings in this for abusive relationships and cover-ups, and just like abuse by your partner and being held captive basically by your partner, and it's hard to read, but it's so good, and it's so important, and the ending is so worth it, because when Iris and the hero finally get together, it's just so well, and so much has happened, and they've grown so much as people by the end, and they're so changed and so much stronger to have been able to get through it, and it's really, really good, and I would totally recommend it. Then the next one that I want to mention is It Ain't Me, Babe by Tilly Cole. This is another one that I know that's over 450 pages, but I do not have a physical copy, so I can't tell you the exact number of pages. This one is a motorcycle club dark romance, and it is about a girl who escapes from a cult, and she ends up in this bar where she sees this head of the motorcycle club, and she recognizes him. They've seen each other before, and he recognizes her. They had seen each other once before when they were children through a fence while she was still in her cult. But the head of the motorcycle club, who happens to be mute, he doesn't speak, he recognizes her, and he immediately lets her stay with them and doesn't want her to leave, and he and her end up having a relationship from there, but also they have to deal with her being an escapee from this cult, and the cult coming to look for her, and her sisters being stuck in the cult still, and her wanting to rescue them but also not wanting to go back and get captured, and the dealing with like the fact that he's in a motorcycle club, and that, you know, there's always like illegal stuff and danger coming from every turn with that, but it is really good, and I love the relationship that builds between the main characters. I love the fact that the hero has to deal with being the president of the motorcycle club while also being mute, which is something that I know that a lot of people like look down on him for being weak because he doesn't speak, so he has to deal with that. But it is really good. Would totally recommend. I need to read more from Tilly Cole. Then the next one that I want to mention is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. I actually do have a physical copy of this, but it's way over there and I don't feel like getting up right now, and I forgot to grab it before I sat down. But this is Sarah J. Maas's book. It is about 800 pages. It is so good. It was one of my favorite books of 2020, even higher than From Blood and Ash. It is probably my favorite Sarah J. Maas book, which is saying a lot because I am a huge ACOTAR fan, and I absolutely love it. This one is about Bryce Quinlan, and she is a half-fae girl who lives in Crescent City. She is this is an urban fantasy, so it is an entirely fantasy, but takes place in an urban setting. So this one is about Bryce Quinlan, who is half fae, and she is best friends with a girl named Danica and a werewolf pack called the Pack of Devils that Danica runs. But when tragedy strikes and the entire Pack of Devils is killed, Bryce sets out to find the killer, because they arrested somebody who they thought was the killer, but when 2 years go past and somebody else starts dying in the same way that the Pack of Devils was killed, they find out that the murderer who they thought was the murderer wasn't actually the murderer. So Bryce is tasked by the governor of the city to search for the murderer, and he hires, loans out his one of his slaved angels, Hunt, to be in charge of helping her, and they both try and go look for the murderer together. That was a terrible description, but I promise it's so good. There's so much more to it, and it's hard to give synopsis without spoiling things, so I promise it's really good. Please read it. It's amazing. But there is also a lovely relationship that builds between Bryce and Hunt, and I cannot wait for the second book. I just found out that it's set to release in November of this year, and I am so excited. So please go read it. It's amazing. Then the last book that I want to mention is Inked in Lies by Gianna Darling. So this is book 5, I believe, in the Fallen Men series, but all of the Fallen Men books can be read as standalones. And this is Nova and Lila's book. So Nova and Lila were childhood friends. Lila is the daughter of a drug dealer or drug lord, and a lot of bad things go on in her household. But when the Nova's family moves in next door, his family becomes her and her brother's family. Like, they really get along very, very well. Her brother and Nova become very, very close. So when her family tragedy strikes her family, she ends up living with Nova and his family. And as they grow up, Lila realizes that she loves Nova as more than a friend, and Nova really sees her as just his like childhood friend who he needs to protect. There's a huge age gap between them. I think there's like a good 10 plus years between Nova and Lila. And as Nova gets older and as Lila gets older, they both have to deal with their feelings for each other. Like, Nova really refuses to see her differently than just being his childhood friend that he wants to protect, whereas Lila is like deeply in love with him. And it is so amazing and just so beautifully written. Gianna Darling has one of the most poetic writing styles for dark romances. Like, it's crazy how well it's written and how so like beautiful a book about motorcycle clubs can be. And that's with all of the Fallen Men series. But one of my favorite things about Inked in Lies is the talk of tattoos. Nova is a tattoo artist, and Lila is entirely covered in tattoos that were all done by Nova. She loves flowers, and she has different types of like flower and floral and like botanical tattoos all over her body, and they were all done by Nova, and they really mean a lot to her. And she really like talks through the language of flowers on her body and to show how much that she cares for Nova. And it's so good and so sweet, and it's just really, really amazing to see how their relationship grows and how they grow as people and how happy they are together, and how much they try, or Nova tries to deny it, but it's really good and I would totally recommend it. But trigger warnings in this one also for loss of a loved one and some others, so I can't think of them right now, but some other trigger warnings, so just make sure that you are aware of that before you read it. But that was all of them. So I hope you found some books that you haven't read that you might be interested in now. But I love large books. I think that they're so enjoyable to read. Sometimes when a book is too short, I get it so sad. I don't feel like they are developed well enough. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, or subscribe if you want to see more from me, and I'll see you in my next video. But if you want to catch up with me in the meantime, my links to my Instagram, Goodreads, and Twitter are always in my description.